What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 24 of the Blue River Bow Hunting Podcast, Spring Thunder, Part 3. I have an awesome episode lined up for you guys today. If you watch any turkey hunting on YouTube, you know these guys. They're putting some awesome videos out on YouTube from turkeys from last spring, and it's awesome to watch these guys do what they do. But I got Steven and James Howes from Team Wingbone. How's it going, guys?
All right, Brett. How you doing today? We doing
Good,
fine.
not too bad. I kind of had to put my studio back together. We had like the most rain Indiana had ever seen in like a 6 hour period, and my basement got flooded, so I had to really put in some OT to get the studio ready for tonight.
Oh no. Well, back in 2016, our hometown here flooded, and it was about this deep in here in the building that we're in right now. So yeah,
Wow, it can be tough, It's a full finished basement, and I really had to put the work in to get it cleaned up. But I'm glad you guys came on, man. I want to talk some turkey hunting with you and pick your brains on a lot of different things.
we already ready to talk turkey hunting now.
Oh, I bet.
Time to get.
So introduce yourselves a little bit. Don't matter whoever wants to go first, but kind of introduce yourselves.
I'm James Howes. I guess I'm the oldest member of Team Wingbone. Uh, my handle on the videos is Turkey Hunter. So, and that is Little Turkey Hunter. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to pass the baton to him and let him kind of take over.
Well, I guess my handle on the show doesn't need any explaining. Little turkey hunter. So that's how I got that, and that's been since I was 4 or 5 years old. All the names and handles all come from back in the days of the CB radios, so that's how most of that come about. And every name we got has a story behind it. But
Oh, I guarantee it's always cool to see names pop up on there. And I asked, I asked you earlier in the day. I'm like, should I call you Turkey Hunter and Little Turkey Hunter? Because that's what I know you guys by too. Because I watch all your stuff.
what I think I responded back, and I said, "Well, my name's Stephen Howes, but on my birth certificate, it's Little Turkey Hunter."
Right. That's awesome. Well, tell us how Team Wingbone started and just kind of the heritage behind it.
Okay, well, it started a long time ago, almost a century ago now. My great grandfather, which is his grandpa, he was a big turkey hunter. They had a lot of turkeys in our area back in the 20s, and he was a big turkey hunter. And then he passed it along to my grandpa, and grandpa passed it along to him, and now me. So,
That's awesome.
and fortunate, my daughter, she killed one too, so she was the fifth generation of our family line that got to kill one.
That's awesome. It's always cool to see that, your little intro video on the YouTube and how you started way back in. You called him the old gobbler and, how you started with the wingbone call and all that. Tell me a little bit about turkey hunting in Louisiana. I'm sure you could talk for hours and hours on Louisiana, but tell me what it means to you and the opportunities that it presents itself.
Well, around our area, there's not a whole lot of public land, very little, if any, that's turkey habitat. Most of the public land turkey habitat is up in the northern part of the state, and we're down near Baton Rouge, is where we're from. And but they've had good turkey populations. Like I said, this part of the if you look at the map of Louisiana along the toe of the boot, that was known as the Florida parishes, and it always had a good number of turkey populations back in the 20s and 30s. There's a lot of good turkey hunters in this area, and that's why, because they're all third, fourth, fifth generation turkey hunters. And like I said, the population has gone up and down. I guess in the 80s, it was real good. 90s, early 2000s was pretty good, but it started falling off. Just like it's a national trend around the United States, the turkey population going down. But it seems like it's starting to come back in Louisiana, and we're glad for that. Louisiana Department of Wildlife Fisheries is doing a lot of research projects. We actually was able to assist in some of that, and film a little bit of that. And a good friend of mine from high school, he's our state turkey program manager, and he's an avid turkey hunter, and he's doing a real good job at trying to figure out what he can do to increase the turkey population through studies and research and whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw those videos that you guys posted with, him holding the bird and they were putting the tag on it and everything. How did that all go? Like, how many birds did you guys tag?
I went with him. I guess it was 2 years ago, and we went in before daylight, and they set their net up, and of course they had the turkeys baited there, and it was I was with Cody, and he was the head biologist, and we were in a tent together, and I was doing most all of the filming for him, and he had two guys that he was communicating with, and he was waiting for the turkeys to fly down and come into them, and they were very cautious because he said we had 17 birds there, and he had to make sure that all of their heads were down, or when they shot the net, or it would have taken their heads off. So
Wow.
it was really intense. And I enjoyed filming it, and I think when they actually shot the net over the birds, I think they caught them all but one, and they had one big long beard, and that was the one he let me hold, and he tagged him, and they would put the band on them, and they would weigh them, and they would take the blood from them. So they've done a very good job in getting the population back up. And I might add on Stephen's earlier comment about the turkey population. One thing that really hurts us here is the deadgum storms coming out of the Gulf. They tear the woods up, and that really hurts it's good for the deer population to have the thickets or whatever, but the turkey habitat they need, they like to clean woods and all that. So it takes them some time to recover from the storms, and we've had some pretty bad ones here within the last 20 years or so.
Yeah. When they put those tags on them, are they relocating the birds, or do they just want to track the patterns of the birds?
They're just tracking the patterns of the birds. They catch them on site, and it's a real hurry. They're in a rush, to get them. They get blood samples, tag them. They'll put GPS transmitters on them and turn them right back loose in place. And it's just researching, watching how the hens, when they nest, and the gobblers, how they move about, and then how many hens are successful on the hatch, and how many nests, go on and raise their poults, and
Yeah.
just gathering all that kind of information.
Yeah, I went to school to be a conservation officer myself, and I got to work at a state park after I graduated, and I got to be a process of them banding and putting double banding waterfowl in the state park, and it was really cool to be a part of all that. I basically just wrote numbers down on a pad for them, but it was cool to be able to see how the process, of everything, all the officers working together, and they were actually corralling these big groups of honkers into this bay with boats, because at a certain time of the year they shed their primary flight feathers and they can't fly. Yeah. So they would just corral them into a big pen basically, and then just start pulling them out like chickens or something. But it was pretty fun.
Wow, it's fun to be involved in some of those type projects.
Yeah, are you guys able to group with like the NWTF on anything down there?
Yeah, well, we're members of the NWTF and attend the meetings and all.
Yeah, that's cool. A guy that I've had on my show before, and I'm going to have him back on after he gets done with some Osceolas down there. But I know a guy that works for the NWTF, Paul Campbell. We had lunch on Sunday, and it was kind of cool to meet somebody that I've had on the show that I've never met in person before. But he was at a state chapter meeting here in Indiana and was driving back through to Ohio and stopped and had lunch with me. It was pretty cool.
Interesting.
So let's talk about the wingbone itself. It's a very unique call. And tell me how that all started with back in the 30s and everything.
Well, I guess that's the only call that I've ever used, and I exclusively use the wingbone. And Stephen will occasionally use a diaphragm call or whatever, but and I got that from my dad and my grandfather, and they basically, back then when they turkey hunted, I mean, you couldn't go to the Bass Pro or Cabela's. I mean, they had to use what they basically had. And I can remember in my early teens when the first diaphragm call came out. And I guess my grandfather, I'd heard the stories and have seen him take a leaf or a blade of grass and call a turkey up with it. And I guess that was the diaphragm call days. And it was pretty interesting to see how they did it. But they made their own calls. And
you was talking about the wingbone, and my grandpa, he told me when he started using his, in the intro, 1933. Well, that was when he really killed his first one. He was 9 years old, and that was spring in 1933. And he said prior to that, he killed him towards the end of the spring season there. And he said he would go out there behind the house, and they had 6, 7 turkeys gobbling. And he said I'd take my wing bone, I'd go out there and I'd call to them, and by the time I got to the last one, I'd done run all of them off. So he'd come back to the front and he'd practice and call. And my great grandfather would give him some tips, and he said I'd practice, and he said I'd go out there the next morning and I'd run them all off. And he said finally I went out there one day, and about the last one I got to, I called to him, and he flew and lit in a tree, and I killed him. He said I figured I had it by then.
That's awesome. Talk about how unique it is. It creates such a unique sound compared to a friction call or a diaphragm or a box call.
Right. And I believe that that's why it's so successful, because it does sound a little bit different than all the other calls, and it has that unique sound. And if you can use it right, it's deadly. But it does take a lot of time and a lot of practice, to be able to call on it and be able to use it.
Yeah, that was my next question. Growing up, 13, 14, 15 years old, working on the calls in the garage, watching, the Primos VHSs back then and all that kind of thing. Talk to me a little bit about practicing when you were younger. I mean, you probably drove everybody crazy with that wing bone call.
I got a real good story for that. I'm glad you asked that question. Many years ago, we have a place in Southwest Mississippi, and we had hunted the whole season, and he was young. He was probably maybe 10 or 11 years old, and he was learning how to call with the wing bone. Of course, my dad made the wing bone for him, and he would critique him in practicing and no, you're not doing this right or you're not doing that and so forth, and he would practice. So we hunted the whole season. We got to the very last weekend. He and I were the only two up there, and we sitting there, and he's sitting on the front porch of our place, and he's sitting there calling. And he's calling, and I'm trying to, pick up, gather things up, ready to come home, got to go to work on Monday, and he's calling. I said, would you
sitting there
practicing? I said, would you please put the wing bone up and help me finish vacuuming and cleaning up, because we got to go to work, we got to go to school. So finally he put it down, and he had been calling for an hour, and I go put a load of stuff in the truck, come around the corner of the place, and I hear a turkey guy. Well, he's been sitting there calling for 30 or 45 minutes, and that was the very first turkey that he called up. And we took our camo off and had our going home clothes on, and we jerked everything off, put the camouflage on, and we went out there and we killed the turkey. And he actually had called him up sitting on the front porch and didn't know. So that was
that's awesome. I never got that lucky for sure. Definitely never got that lucky. But something I was going to bring up at some point in this conversation. Where I'm at in Central Indiana, turkey population is very, very low. I mean, almost like there's not really any birds here in Central Indiana. You might have a flock here or there that are along some rivers. That's about it. I'm mostly a travel hunter when it comes to turkey hunting. Southern Indiana has a lot of birds. Northern Indiana has a lot of birds. But right here where I'm at in Central Indiana, just not that many birds. So, most of my opportunities that I've had is actually in the state of Kentucky. I have some family down there that has some property, and some friends of some family down there that let me hunt their place. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Kentucky or not, but Kentucky is wild. I mean, here in Indiana where I've hunted a few select birds, there's the population's not that high, so you may have 3 or 4 or 5 guys on public land, and they're probably all chasing the same bird. You know what I mean? And it's so much different to go down there in Kentucky where I have free range on private land and doing the thing. And it took me first try ever, my first ever turkey hunt was with my dad and my uncle, and we actually didn't really know what we were doing. Nobody had ever turkey hunted before. We're big deer hunters in our family, and we had a push button call. And they had it on the end of my gun with the little rope on it, and I'm sitting there hitting it, and we actually had a bird super fired up right off the bat, and I ended up shooting a Jake that morning, first morning ever. That's about as lucky as I can get when it comes to turkey hunting.
Good memory.
Oh, absolutely. You talk about, having a place in Mississippi. Is that something that was kind of like a family tradition you went to every year?
Yeah, we have a place up there, and that's where basically I was brought up hunting up there, and we did most of our hunting in that area. And then, but we came, and that was the lower years of the population for the turkeys. And then, as they started coming back, we started hunting them again in Louisiana and Mississippi. And then, like you, we just started traveling. Probably 20 years ago, we Missouri was our first trip. Pawpaw got to go with us. I think we went 2 or 3 years in a row, and he killed one up there, and we had a great time and some good memories. And after that, we our it was our goal to kill the Grand Slam. Everybody talks about that, so we went and killed the Grand Slam. Actually, killed them all on public land.
Wow, that's huge.
Killed the Rio and the Marion and the Osceola. And I just got back this weekend. I just got back yesterday from Florida. I went and hunted some public land in South Florida for the opening weekend, and we got fortunate enough, and I had another guy with me. He's actually my boss, so I'm gonna brag on him a little bit
There
because
you go.
he gets the ultimate say when I take vacation or not. So he's a good turkey hunter too. So he and I went together. I was filming and we were hunting, and I killed one and he killed two, and we got all three of them on film. So
That's awesome. So you were doing it public land. Was it like a northern Florida thing or a southern Florida
no,
thing?
you got to be. The season opened up south of Highway 70 in Florida, basically around Lake Okeechobee,
Hmm.
just north of Lake Okeechobee. South is the season up. Season opener was this past Saturday, and the northern zone I think opens up maybe like this weekend.
I gotcha. So how are the populations in Florida right now?
Ah, well, we did kill three in 2 days, but that was only three I heard gobble, and there was a ton of people down there. The Osceolas are a prized possession. A private land hunt's probably averaging $2,200 for one bird now, and everybody's trying to go down there and kill them on public land. So
Yeah, public land. I didn't really have that written in my notes, but it sounds like you guys have been doing the public land hunting for a long time.
yeah,
What do you think about how it's transitioned in the last few years of being like, like the in thing to do or like a popular thing to do? Is it just because of the reward where you're chasing them with everybody else, or what do you think?
I think the public land part, the appeal to most people is that you have so much more land to hunt. Typically when you're on private land, I mean, I guess certain places you have big ranches out west, but it seems like most of the eastern side of the United States is if you go on a private land hunt, most of those are smaller tracts of land. And I think most turkey hunters they like to have a lot of room to roam. So you
Yeah.
can chase those turkeys through the mountains or wherever they're at and get
Now,
after
as far as your land that you're hunting close to the house, is it private or public?
it. Yeah, like I said earlier, the around here where we're at, there's very little public land, and what public land we do have is not really turkey habitat. So in our parish, the counties we have parishes in Louisiana, and in our parish it's no public land. So if you turkey hunt here, it's private land, but most of it's like big leases from timber company. They own the majority of the land, and it's leased from the timber companies. And we hunt that, but it's almost like public land because everybody in the club's chasing the same turkeys.
Yeah. So let's talk about some preseason scouting. What exactly are you guys doing preseason, off season to scout on these turkeys?
Uh, I guess earlier in the year, we always try to go around wherever we're going to plan on hunting, and just listen really in the morning. Try to pick some of the better, prettier mornings. I think you can
A couple of mornings this year.
2, 3 mornings this year listening. So,
We've hunted there so long that we have our different areas that we go to, and we kind of go to the same ones year in and year out, and sometimes they're gobbling, and sometimes they're not there. The eastern turkey, and like Stephen said, we killed the Grand Slam, and I personally think the Osceola and the eastern are the toughest out of the four to kill because if the wind is barely blowing or whatever, I mean, they just don't like to gobble. I mean, they're very finicky, I guess.
Yeah. Did you see a difference in the birds out west when it came to the wind like that?
Oh yeah, they didn't hardly bother them. The Merriams and the Rios, they'll gobble even with the wind blowing. Around here, if you hear one gobbling with the wind blowing, you better consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, I've been part of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What about, it's a relatively new thing to do, but what about e-scouting? Do you do any e-scouting? Maybe like if you're going on a hunt somewhere that you have never been before or something?
oh yeah, absolutely. Since these all this internet, with the satellite imagery, I mean that's been valuable. And then another app now is the Onyx Hunt.
Hmm.
I mean you can't beat that, and we do a lot of looking. You can get the feel of for what you need to be looking for. And creek bottoms, hills, timber, what have you, just different variations in the terrain, and key in on that, and that helps us narrow down the area.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially maybe you could see some fields and, ridges looking at the topo map on top of it. It might help you out, maybe finding a ridge maybe that they're roosted on or something like that.
Absolutely.
What about scouting tips in general? What's a skip or uh, scouting tip for maybe for somebody that's new to turkey hunting or something like that? Maybe a beginner that doesn't really know what's going on.
I guess the scouting, as far as what we look for the most, is tracks. We look for tracks, and the turkey scratching. On top of ridges. That's always going to be in the hardwood uh, areas. They're going to be scratching for the acorns and all. And just looking for tracks in the roads. But I think just getting up high on the hilltop somewhere and just listening before the season will give you a lot of information, a lot of intel on
Yeah,
their location.
those turkeys definitely tell you where they're at. Whether
That's
you can seal them in or not, that's a whole nother
one
game.
story there. That's right.
What about roosting birds of an evening? Is that something that you like to do as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We said if you can roost a turkey, if you can either hear him fly up and light in a tree, or if you can hear him gobble in the evening time, your chances of killing him go up.
Absolutely.
Big time, yeah.
What about picking locations as far as like maybe after a fly down? Maybe you heard him up on the roost, he's gobbling, doing his thing, and he goes completely opposite direction, and you can just hear him fade away. What's your next move, and what kind of locations are you picking in order to chase these birds?
It depends. If I feel like he's got hens with him, most of the time I feel like they're not going to be moving very fast. That's Eastern's Osceola. Merriam's Rios, that's a whole nother story. But,
Right.
they like to fly down and leave there. But the Easterns, I feel like they're not going to move too fast. So I try to just look at the terrain. And like I said, I'm constantly using Onyx apps and just looking at the terrain and trying to put together a game plan. I always feel like it's okay if I don't kill him the first day. Get a little intel on him, gather some information, and then the second day, good chance he's in trouble then.
Yeah. What about, I've asked, this is part three of Spring Thunder series that I'm doing. I've asked everybody this question. Run me through, you know, your hunt, like how it starts, from getting coffee in the morning to listening to a certain ridge. Walk me through a typical hunt with you guys.
Well, we usually get up. We have our morning coffee, and of course, we have discussed the night before where we're going to go. And if we've got a turkey located, then we'll probably go together, he and I. And one will be on the gun, one will be on the camera, and we almost exclusively hunt public land. So you got to be early. You want to be first, and you want to be respectful. If someone is there where you're going, we got to go somewhere else. That's kind of the unwritten rule when you're hunting public land. So we go in and we like to go to the area, and we kind of wait and kind of let the turkey do his own thing. In other words, we don't want to owl to him too early. And one of the tips, I guess, that I would give the new person, and what my grandfather and my dad his grandfather would always say, "Don't never leave an area or uh, get too excited or get too quick." He said, "Always wait for a crow to holler," and that has been always a telltale sign for us. When you hear the first crow holler, if there's a turkey there, then it's time, for him to gobble. And if we don't hear it, we hear the crow, we haven't heard one, then we may owl or blow a crow call or something like that to try to locate him. And then, once we locate him, you pick your spot and you go to him and you try to get as close to him as you can. And hopefully, on public land, no one else is coming to him from a different direction. So you're not only, you got to address the turkey hunting plus the pressure that may come with
Excuse me. What about situational calling? You got a bird, he's hung up at 80 yards or something like that. What's some good situational calling tips for somebody?
Uh, I think nowadays a lot of people call too much. I believe is what my grandpa, great grandpa, my grandpa. They were one, two calls, and that was it. One call maybe was enough. You might call twice, but I believe it's effective. To do a little more calling, but I still think that there's a tendency for someone to overcall. This past weekend was a perfect example. We were down there in the South Florida swamps, and I heard one gobble, and I got to him, and I had my boss beside me, and we're standing in knee deep water, leaning up against the cypress tree, and I call to him, and he answers me, and he comes up there and he stops at about 80 yards, and he's standing there and he's strutting and gobbling, strutting and gobbling. I'm getting it all on film good. He's straightening up, looking at me, and he's gobbling, he's strutting, and I wouldn't call to him. And I give him a little while, and then I just give him a couple of soft yeps, just to let him know I was still there. And he gobbled, and finally he couldn't stand it, and he actually folded up and started running and came running in there to us.
That's
And
awesome.
I think somebody would have, a new hunter, not knowing, may have had a tendency to cause way too much in that situation, and he never would have come. He would just stood there and gobbled and strutted and eventually walked off.
because if you call to him and he answers you, he knows exactly where you're sitting.
Absolutely.
It's not he's not going to misjudge the distance like we would, or what. I mean, he's going to know where you are, and you have to you wait him out, and he's going to come there and he's going to gobble like the one did this weekend to him, and he's where's the hen? I know he's here, and that's or she's here. And but I agree with Little Turkey Hunter. It is if you can call too much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people maybe new to the sport maybe call too much too early. You know what I mean? Like, birds getting fired up on the roost. They may have never been in that situation before, and it gets them fired up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just constantly wanting to go back and forth. When
Right.
you should
Exactly.
wait him out just a little bit on that. At least let him hit the ground.
That's
All
right.
right, right.
I turkey hunted with some guys a couple years ago, and they were very aggressive calling when he was still on the limb, and I knew he was still on the limb because he was 500 yards across this field, and we could see him up on this power line cutout. And I'm like, you guys just need to quit. I mean, yeah, he's gobbling, but won't you just settle down for a second? And actually, when he hit the ground, he went the total opposite direction, which I don't know if maybe that scared him off or what. But it was later, way later in the season. Like I think it was actually the last day of season here, and the only thing to get him to gobble was a crow call. Anytime we hit the crow call, he would gobble, but he would not gobble to anything else turkey talk wise.
That's a sign of a turkey that has been called to a
A lot of pressure on it.
Exactly. That's public land too, especially when they may only have one or two birds or three or four or whatever in the area that they're chasing. I'm sure he was highly educated with every time they were calling. He's like, yeah, I'm not going that direction.
I've heard that. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
One mistake we did make though when we first went and hunted the Merriams on our first trip over there and attempting the Grand Slam, I think we called too little. The Merriams don't be scared to call them. They're very vocal. The gobblers and the hens, and that was our mistake of not calling enough. But once we figured that out, we were making hay then.
Yeah, we'll talk about the differences in calling when it comes to an Eastern, an Osceola, a Rio, whatever. Talk a little bit about those differences and how you kind of had to learn on the fly on those birds.
Well, the Osceola was pretty easy because to me, it's not very much difference between them and the Eastern, just other than location.
Hmm.
Uh, and they act the same to me, and all the Rios and the Merriams are a lot different. The Merriam more so than any of them. And I mean, everybody knows their gobble sounds completely different.
Right.
But like I said, they're so much vocal. I think the first year we went over there, I called a couple of times, and I had one goblin right by me, and it's like their attention span so short. And next thing I know, he's gone across the mountain. I'm like, well, what happened? Well, then we learned, that keep calling, and that for some reason that's just been more productive for us to call a lot more when hunting the Merriams and the Rios.
versus the Easterns and Osceola. I would say call way less on them.
Well, I think you got a good story on the Rio.
Oh, I do.
We got to hear this.
First Rio.
On our first Rio, we were in Texas, and of course, this is just two members of Team Wingbone. We got two or three other members, Perch and Hind Leg and Bagman and so forth, and they weren't able to be with us tonight. And it's all family and extended family or whatever. So we were in Texas hunting the Rio, and we were out there. We were kind of didn't first afternoon, and we not knowing exactly where we were or whatever. And I ended up with Hind Leg, and he's kind of the one that kind of we got to kind of watch him. We don't let him get out too far, every now and then. But
He's the newbie.
he's the newbie, so he's with me and Steven somewhere else, and we get in there that afternoon, and we hear turkey, and he's over there on one side of the creek or whatever the river going through the place that we were hunting. He's on one side, and I'm on the other side, and I can hear him calling and the turkey answering. Well, he's a newbie now, so I pull out my call, which I have nicknamed Old Yellow, and I put the call on him where he avoids him and comes to me, and I kill the turkey. So I got to crow a little bit about that. And
But said, I think you called those more, and he just called once.
He called once, and I kept calling two or three more times, and he came to me. So he didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he told me not to tell that story, by the way.
So we had to make sure we told it.
Oh, that's even better. That's even better. It's cool that you guys have the team members and everything. It's kind of like what I got going here, except for it's mostly whitetails, and we all team up and help each other film whitetails and everything. But that having that buddy that you always mess with, and unfortunately, I'm the guy that usually gets messed with. I shoot like 115-inch deer, and I'm still not living it down. I'm sure he'll see this, and I'll get a text as soon as he sees this. But they give me a lot of shit for shooting little bucks sometimes, which I'm behind the camera, 60 to 70, 80% of the time, so I don't really have a whole lot of opportunities. So when I have one, I'm usually going to take it, But I'm always the butt of the jokes when we're having beers in the garage talking deer hunting.
Well, that's what we do. We get along and we nag each other, but we all have a good time. We all are big buddies, and we enjoy it. But then when daylight comes, then it's serious business then.
Oh, absolutely. It's game face when that sun's coming up. That's awesome. Talk about, like the terrain features are so vast from you chasing, Osceolas in the swamps to Merriam's up in the mountains and stuff. Talk about how that can be, I'm sure you probably have to work out a little bit to get up in the mountains.
I'm telling you, when we first went out west, and our first Merriam hunt was in South Dakota, we all thought we was gonna pass out. We wasn't prepared for the altitude, and like you couldn't get enough air. But it took us a few days to get acclimated. And then if you're hunting in Florida, you just be prepared to get wet and stay wet.
I don't think I would like that one bit.
That's the only place in the country that has the Osceola, but I'm terrified of South Florida. The terrain there, as Little Turkey Hunter said, is just unbelievable how it is. I mean, it's cypress heads and it's swamp. It just to me, it just doesn't look like turkey habitat, but they're there and they're very, very hard, to take.
I
Yeah.
think one of the toughest places we've been has probably been West Virginia. Had the mountains, but they were so steep. It was unbelievable. It was hard hunting up there. We was on one time. He was up on a rock cliff, and he said, "There's no way we can get to him." I said, "Well, we don't have no choice but to call him down." And we called to him, and he was gobbling, and he came up to the edge, and he was looking over at us. Of course, we were hid, but we looking up at him, 80 foot up in the air. I said, well, "What's he gonna do now? He ain't no way." And he pitched off that ridge and flew down right in front of us. So
That's
they're
awesome.
used to it. They don't. The turkeys, it don't bother them. The terrain, it bothers the hunters.
But the mountains there, they're not as high as the Rockies or New Mexico or what, but they're very steep, and I mean that's tough. That's very
I guarantee you, I have to almost get like a little workout plan before I go to Kentucky. Hit the treadmill a couple times or elliptical or whatever, because those hills probably a lot like West Virginia. Man, they straight put a whooping on me sometimes. I can remember probably one of the last birds I killed 2 years ago, might have been 3 years ago, in Kentucky, anyways. When I got back to the truck, I couldn't hardly breathe and I couldn't hardly talk. And my great aunt at the time owned the property, and she was out front, old timer from Kentucky. She's all smiles and wanting to hear the story, but I couldn't hardly breathe. I'm like, "You're gonna have to give me a second. I'm about to lose my breakfast here in a second." But that's the cool thing about the filming thing. There's most of the time there's somebody with you. I know you do a lot of self filming for yourself and stuff, but to film other people, it don't matter what it is, whitetails, turkeys. I get just a rush behind that camera as I do if I'm behind the bow or the gun.
that's what I told little turkey hunter. I said, man, I wish we'd have had the technology to film my dad and grandfather back then, to preserve something. We got the old black and white pictures, but that would have been, very neat to be able to do. But I agree with you. I just assume film than pull the trigger, because you're all there together, and it puts a whole new element on it when you're trying to hide the camera, the two people, and you're communicate, and because you're sitting close together. And the one thing that was always drilled into our mind: you have to hide, you have to hide, you have to hide, you have to be hid. Because the old guys, they didn't have the face mask, the painting, the paint on the gloves or whatever. I mean, it was khakis or whatever. But so it puts a whole new element on it when you film it, and I enjoy doing that. Steven does most of the editing for us. He does an excellent job with that.
Absolutely.
And it takes time to do that. But I would rather film than shoot.
Me too. But I always tell people, especially when I do it during deer season, I'm like, I'll film you all year long, but give me a few days in here too. You know what I mean? Let me behind the weapon a couple times, especially if you're chasing one of the big bucks. I get jealous. I'm ready to kill a big buck.
That's right.
Talk about filming and how did it begin? Where did you start at? Were you just like one day like, we need to get this on video. This is unbelievable footage that we're seeing. Like, how did it start for you filming wise?
I guess for me, it was when my grandpa passed away in 2013. I was about 36, 37 years old. That last turkey season, he was 89 years old, and this is actually the turkey that we killed. Me
That's
and I
awesome.
together, and that's why I put it up there. But I just realized, at that point that life's short, and I wanted to capture some of our, good moments while we're hunting in the woods because it was special to me, the turkey hunting and all. And I got my dad, Perch. That's like a brother to me. He grew up just across the road from my grandpa, and we're cousins, and so we were around each other all the time. He was actually sitting right beside me when I killed my first turkey. Me and him and my grandpa when I was 10 years old, and called it up and killed it, and he was right there with me, And then hind leg, he's been a junior high, sixth grade. We were friends. He was the best man in my wedding, so and I just wanted to capture some of those times, while we were in the woods hunting, try to preserve them. So when I get too old and can't go, I can at least sit back and watch some of those hunts.
You got some good ones to watch, man. I really applaud your editing skills and everything, the way you put it all together. It's unbelievable footage, and looking at some of your guys' social when I go to tag you on some stuff, I saw some lower numbers. Like there is no reason why these guys should have a low following. I would put your turkey footage up against anybody on YouTube.
Well,
Your best video with somebody else's video, you're blowing them out of the water, man.
Well, thank you.
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Every time I see one pop up, I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this. And I can't believe that you never had anybody ask you to do a show or talk about what's going on with you guys or whatever as a whole. I mean, you guys are killing some birds.
Well, when I actually started putting them up, the video takes so much space, so you kind of run out of room to hold uh, footage. So I started putting the videos together and putting them on YouTube, and it was mainly just so I could go to them and watch them. And I shared them with a few of our friends. We got a circle of turkey hunters around this area, and share it with them. So we really wasn't promoting it and putting it out at first, and just kind of just for fun. And I mean, it still is for fun, but
Oh,
really
absolutely.
wasn't expecting
And
nothing.
I didn't really mean anything by the numbers wise. I was just it
Oh,
really took me by surprise because I'm the same way. I'm not doing this for views. I'm not
right.
doing it for none of that. I'm doing it for myself to have fun, have great conversation, meet amazing people. And when you network like that, man, you can really meet some cool people, and you never know what kind of opportunities it can bring.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. That's one thing that we've found, through doing this. I mean, I never would have met you, and we texted and emailed back and forth and shared stories, and I've gotten a lot of messages from other people, private messages and stuff, and that's what's been so neat to me, that they can relate to our videos through the same way. You have friends that they'll tell me, hey, hind leg reminds me of my buddy such and stuff like that, and I really enjoy hearing all of that. It's neat to see how much we're all the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your guys' video that you just put out last week or a couple days ago, I can't remember, but it's a Colorado hunt, and you said
Yeah,
we got it all covered, and you had three different people filming, three different setups, all really close where you could kind of see each other for the most part. That was like one of the coolest turkey videos I think I've ever seen in my life, just because of that point of view.
right.
You guys were down there, and other guys were up top, and you could see. You had what? Do you guys have like walkie talkies or something?
Yeah, we had little radios just to communicate, and we we'd seen those turkeys in the field the day before, so we just went in there, and set up. So him and hind leg, they were up on top of the mountain, so they could see down. Because when you're down there at that angle, you can't see anything, So that was the plan. They was going to warn us if some turkeys came in the field. The wind was blowing real bad. Uh, Jeffrey hadn't killed one yet, and Perch hadn't killed. So that was our mission for them two to kill, and so we went in there, devised that little plan up, and made sure we had cameras in all angles just to see. Never dreamed we'd capture all that, but you're right. That one did turn out good. That was one of my favorites.
It's so unique, because I feel like every situation, there's so many situations you got put in a very small amount of time, and the way you handled it was just really cool. Like you guys were gonna get up and try to chase that first bird, but then all of a sudden they're like, hey, there's two more turkeys coming right at you, and then you almost just like dropped your stuff and was like, we got to set up right here, and then you end up killing the one, and then the other one went down the field and they got one. It was very awesome. I thought it was a cool video.
That's it. And we was laughing at ourselves because I was thinking Bagman was shooting the turkey and had him crippled. So I was looking at the difference on the ground. I said, "Give me the gun. I'm gonna finish him off," because I thought he was standing there hurt. And then he goes down there and Perch kills him. Yeah, we have laughed at that video till we.
What was it like chasing the birds up in the mountains like that? Was it just an all experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, beautiful country, and like I said, those turkeys, the Merriams, they love to gobble. I like hunting the Merriam. I like to hear turkey. I think all turkey hunters like to hear turkeys gobble, and so that's the Merriam. So I like
Yeah.
those.
And they gobble almost all day long. I mean, they're very active.
Yeah, even after his buddy got
Yeah,
pummeled at the one end of the field, he was gobbling again, 50 yards past him.
hey, I got a hen over here. I'm gonna go check her out.
Yeah.
I was
Too
going
bad for you. I'm skipping town, bud.
to mention one other thing on the video, and we kind of laugh at ourselves because when we do a video and he puts it together and we get to see the raw footage and all. The dadgum camera don't lie, and it'll tell you. We'll break it down. We call it breaking down game film, and we laugh at it. And you can see where the shot goes. I mean,
Yeah.
I shot him, and and he looks at me. We in the woods. What happened? I said I had it on him. Well, if we play it back, and you look, I shoot 3 feet behind him in the dirt or something, or perfect here, or let me.
I think the one we all talk about, me and him and Hind Leg were in Kansas, and I called one up. And he's out in the field, and it was dirt out there, and Hind Leg shoots, and I mean he shoots a foot to the right and 10-foot sharp, and I mean you see the dirt fly, but during the hunt we didn't see none of that, and the turkey runs and flies off, and Hind Leg looks at me and he said, "I hurt that turkey." And you go back and look at the film, he didn't even shoot close to him.
It didn't even hit his feet.
Still laughing.
The only thing he hit the turkey. The only thing he hit the turkey with the dirt.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I got to get a monkey off my back this year. I missed last year. Me and a couple guys did a trip to northwest Missouri, kind of open pasture area. And I was actually bow hunting the first couple days. And then I decided, okay, I've had enough of this. It's time to shoot something in the face. So I got the gun out, and I missed the last day I was there, the last morning. Talk about being dejected, but that's what makes YouTube and stuff unique. I put that on there. I put the video on there, me missing. The whole trip as a whole video was cool, but to show myself failing, I think is a very unique thing on YouTube. You may not see that a whole bunch on there.
Right, yeah, and we put the misses up there. A lot of people laugh at us and pick on us about it, but to me, that's real hunting. If you hunt enough, you're gonna miss. I don't care what you hunting: deer, turkey, squirrels, rabbits, ducks. You're gonna miss. If you hunt enough and shoot enough.
Yeah, and the reason I said that, you're talking about breaking down game film. When I went back and looked, I slowed it very slow-mo to see where my shot went, and I shot like a foot high. I don't even know, and I'm shooting the True Glow sights on my gun. And I don't know if I just didn't get that bead down far enough or what, but I shot incredibly high and just about puked afterwards.
The video will tell the tale for sure.
Yeah, we always say everybody practices shooting. They put their gun in the lead sled and get it all set up and shoot. But if you really want to shoot, you need to run around the house about 10 times and then prop up and shoot and see what you got.
Yeah, right. Actually, when I practice, I practice out of my vest on the ground or the little chair that I have or whatever, which I don't know if you guys use those much, but I find those things to be incredible. It makes me last a lot longer on the ground.
Oh, yeah. We started using the vest with the seats in them, to be able to lean back. I started using those when we started filming because you're limited on where you can set up, and I'm like you, if you're not comfortable, you can't sit there long. So that was a big key for us, being able to, once we transitioned from just turkey hunting to filming the hunts, being able to be comfortable and have a chair like that to sit in.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember if you put this video up last year or was one of your first videos you put up this year, but you were self-filming. And talk about how hard you end up killing a bird. I think it was in Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. But how hard is it to I have a super hard time doing it for bow hunting on whitetails. I can't even imagine what it's like, with the gobbler in your face and you're trying to do 3 different things.
Right. Yeah, I have 3 cameras that I use almost all the time. You got the big main camera. It has the good mic on it, and of course it's the best camera that I have, but then I also use a GoPro, and you get capture a lot of more for the viewers. You capture a lot more, and it kind of puts them there and gives them a perspective of what's going on, And then I always like to I have a camera on my hat, and I like to use it because the way we hunt, we're not setting up in a field with decoys right in front of us. We're moving, and you never know how they're going to come in or how you're going to be set up, So been able to capture a few hunts with the lid camera, and not be because you can't get the big camera around, get twisted and turned up. But yeah, it is hard self filming. I always That's when I started putting the net on front of the camera. That kind of helps hide, so I can keep my hand up there as long as possible that I think I can, so I can run the zoom and all as the turkey's coming in. But it gets to a certain point, you got to give up on the camera and get your hand on the gun, and that net protects me to be able to get my hand back, before he gets there.
Do you wear like a pad or anything on your knee to balance your gun, or is it just straight your knee?
Just straight knee.
That's some technique right there.
That's it.
I got one of those pads, those grooved pads that I wear, and I find myself, I can bounce that gun on that pad sometimes and kind of be hands free. I actually got drawed for a non-resident Michigan turkey tag this year.
Really?
So some guys I've had on the show before invited me up to Michigan to go up there. They're not super into turkey hunting, and I kind of traded them a turkey hunt for a deer hunt. And I'm ready to get on some gobblers, but it's kind of going to be like a YouTube collaboration with what they got going on with what I got going on. And it's going to be kind of cool because he's like, how are you going to do this? I'm like, I'll film and you film, and then you give me what you recorded. I'll give you what I recorded. You make your own video, and I'll make my own video because I'm going to have GoPros and that sort of thing. And you'd be able to see it from so many different angles. I think it would be a pretty cool video.
Absolutely.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that one you were talking about earlier. Those multi cameras, really gives the viewers a perspective of, what all is going on in the feel of the surroundings, and kind of puts them in there with us,
Yeah. Where did you, if you don't mind me asking, where did you get that lid cam? I think I need one of those.
I just saw it on the internet, Googled it. I mean, that's what it's actually called, lid cam. So if you Google it, it'll come up, and they're relatively cheap. I mean, it's like $100 for the lid cam.
Well, I might have to get one of those because it is a unique view.
Yeah.
Even if you botch it on the big camera or you just say screw it at some point and you want to shoot that bird, you can still get it on film.
It's on, right? And that's what happened. This past weekend with that turkey, I was zoomed in so far, and we were standing up against a tree in knee deep water, and with, if you're not stable when you're zoomed all the way in, any little movement is detrimental, to the viewer. And but having that lid cam, I'll be able to cut away, and get some of that stuff out, and clean it up,
Yeah.
It still seems like the timeline, or will be the timeline, but it won't just be that, raw footage of moving.
I noticed that you like to, kind of film all year, have fun with it, and then you go back and, a year later you're releasing your videos. I think that's smart. I get impatient sometimes. Like, I just want everybody to see what happened. I get excited for people to be able to see it. But
Right. Yeah, I'd love to be able to put the Osceola videos up. They're going to be great, but it'll probably be next year because, I mean, if I'm not at work, then I'm hunting, so I don't have time or sleeping, trying to rest up to go hunting or work. So it's just hard to do the editing during the season, So I feel like it's better off just film all year and then start editing all of them.
right. Plus, you get a lot of people on the YouTube right now that are excited for turkey season coming up. They're
Right.
watching a lot of it, and I think that would absolutely benefit your channel as the timeline that you're putting it out. Talk a little bit about your turkey vest. Like, what all is in this thing? Everything but the kitchen sink?
In mine, everything is in the kitchen sink, is in my vest, I believe, with all the batteries and the SD cards. You got to carry extra batteries and all. And yeah, I got binoculars. I got to have those.
Yeah.
Of course, the wingbone, and then mouth calls. And I was just given a box call. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mr. Alan Jenkins. He used to be the owner of Lynch Box Calls out of Liberty, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big time call maker, well known down here in the South. And a buddy of mine knows him very well, and they hunt together. And he made a box call, and I got it. So I started carrying that. That's something new this year.
That's awesome. Did he make it like custom? Did he put your name on it or anything like that?
No, he didn't put my name on it.
I got you.
He made it. My buddy told him, said, make it soft and sweet now. He hunts those public land weary turkey. So I've been
You-
practicing on it. So I got a goal to try to call one up with it this year is my plan. And then of course I got in there in my vest is Pawpaw's wing bone, and that's his wing bone from he made it after World War II when he got back, and when the one he had growing up and killed his first one with, he hunted with it. And he got drafted for World War II when he was 18 years old, and he went over there. He was going to the war, and he actually brought the wing bone with him, and he would keep it in his mess kit so it wouldn't get smashed or crushed or anything, you know. And when they came back and they got off, and they were discharging them, they made them turn all their stuff in, and he forgot it. And he
oh,
threw his mess kit in the pile. He said it was a big pile. They was making him walk by and throw them all in the pile, and he forgot it was in there. So happy to be home,
yeah,
ready
I
to get
bet.
home, you know. So he left it, but he said as soon as he got back, he made a wing bone, and that was the one that I carry today, and that's the one that called my first one and called his first turkey.
And that's our tradition. If we kill a turkey and we take our picture, we always get the gobbler's wing bone out and we put it on the turkey, and he carries it on every hunt. And that's one of our traditions that we do.
That's awesome. Sounds like the tradition runs very, very, very deep, and that's cool to hear stories like that. What about decoys? Are you using a lot of decoys, or are you not using them even at all?
We don't use any decoys. I guess because we mostly hunt public land, you know. I mean, you can use them on public land, but I'm a little bit too scared to use them.
I
Definitely
don't
not
I
a
don't blame you one bit.
definitely not a gobbler. So we've never used decoys, but when we bring a youth hunting, though, we'll put one out. You know, try to take the attention off the hunter
Hmm.
and just get the turkey looking at the decoy, and then we can get them situated. So we got a planned hunt this weekend. We're bringing a young man. I think he's 11 or 12 years old. So we will have a decoy this weekend for sure.
That's awesome. Well, you already talked about smacking a couple Osceolas. What's the plan for 2022 spring turkey tour? Where are you headed?
Well, like I said, this weekend we're going to be on the youth hunt, and then we'll be up in Mississippi at our place up there, probably the first week of the season, and then after that, I think about a week later, Louisiana opens, so we'll be hunting around here in Louisiana, different places that we can hunt, and at our hunting lease down there, and then what we got after that.
We'll go to New Mexico. We have a New Mexico trip planned for this year, all on public land. And then after that, it's Wyoming. So that's the ones that we're going to take. We kind of got messed up last year with COVID, and we didn't really.
Year before,
real.
Last year we went to Colorado.
Right.
And so we kind of catching up. We missed a year there, and so we got four real good opportunities lined up for this year.
That's awesome. Talk about planning those hunts. Like, how far out are you planning them, and what are you doing to check these public land spots out?
We kind of look. We've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to go to a lot of states, and we're trying to kind of reach out now and go to some of the states that we've not gone to. But we have to, the first thing that we do is, go to the websites and we look for the public land because that's what we like to hunt, pretty much. And we try to look at the turkey population there. And we've been fortunate enough to meet people on trips that we've seen. And, one guy told us that he was from upstate New York, and he said, you need to put New York on the map. And because he said we have abundance of turkeys up there. So we have that probably coming up within the next year or so. And that's the Eastern. And, but we have so much fun with Maryland. They gobble and they'll spoil you. I mean, they're fun. So we like to kind of go out west, and so we're kind of going to the different states. I guess it would be we've been to New Mexico before, but it's been several years since we've been out there. But it's kind of a group effort. We kind of kick it around. We thought we were going back to Colorado, but we had a snafu. We didn't get to go, so that's why we picked New Mexico.
Gotcha. Have you ever been up to the Midwest much?
We've been to South Dakota, Nebraska. I guess we've been to Kansas, Oklahoma,
Missouri.
Missouri.
Sounds like you've been just about. Is there a state that you haven't been to?
Yeah, we've probably been. I guess we've been to about 18 or 20. You know, that's the big thing throughout the turkey hunting world now is kill them in all 49. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to do it, but I kind of look back when we killed the Grand Slam, where you want to do it, you got the goal set, then you kill it, and you're like, well what do we do now? You know, so
Right.
kind of leave that sitting there, and it's something I hope we'll get done one day, but I'm in no rush to do it. You
Right. No, it's definitely cool. I love seeing the all the different type of hunts that you're putting out there, and it's really cool, man.
know,
But
thank you.
I don't do it very often, but with you guys coming on, I saw that we've been following each other on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Now, I asked any of my followers on there if they had any questions for you guys in particular,
Uh-oh.
and
I know
this came out of nowhere for me. Ben McDonald, how did you get hooked up with Ben McDonald?
what Ben's going to be mad probably because I tell this, but him and Hind Leg are cousins. So I don't want nobody to know that, but that's the truth. So.
I was like, man, that name sounds real familiar, and I didn't realize it was the first overall pick in the 1989 MLB draft.
He's right here from my hometown, so he's a hometown hero there. He played for LSU. You know, we're all big LSU fans and love watching the Tigers. And he went to LSU, and then he was the #1 draft pick.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a huge sports guy, so I was like, man, that name sounds familiar. So I looked it up, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But his question was, got a question for y'all. Team Wingbone has been hunting several times at Buffalo Oaks in the great state of Mississippi with Jace McDonald. Do y'all think the turkeys on that place are some of the toughest to kill? Team Wingbone always welcomed at Buffalo Oaks. Good luck.
like like I told you earlier in the video, or early in the podcast here, we went to South Florida. We've been all over the southeastern United States, hunting public land, and I thought I'd been up against the toughest turkeys in the world. And then Jace, that's Ben's son,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he wanted to go up to their place turkey hunting, and Ben has a 1,000 acre, and it's a high fence up there. And I said, well, this would be like taking candy from a baby. And we go up there, and the first day I think we had one up about 30 steps of us, and deer scared him and got away from us. So no big deal. I told him, I said, that's all good. It happened. So we came back, and I think a few weeks later, we got to go back and didn't hear one gobble. It was bad weather, So
Mm-hmm.
dang, I told Daddy, I said, that's twice we done been there. Making us look bad. We're supposed to be the experts in the killing machines, So we go back up there, I think about the third trip, and we were so snake bit at that point. I called one up and 10 steps of us in full strut, and we let him get away.
Oh wow.
So I'm terrified of Buffalo Oaks now. I'm scared to death to even drive up through Woodville, Mississippi. I go around on the interstate detour.
Oh, that's good.
It has put it on. We've been very fortunate to get to go to hunt up there. But
I mean,
man,
it's a beautiful place, but we've just had some bad luck there for some reason. I think we've been about four, 5 mornings, and just can't make. We're always trying to get Jace. He hadn't killed a turkey at that time, and we were trying to get him to kill one. And we had the 2 cameras, and with all that, and just couldn't make it happen for him. So,
but Buffalo Oaks whipped
it. Well, I got one last question for you, and I know you probably each have your own version of the answer to this, but what's your most memorable hunt? When somebody talks about turkey hunting, like it's just in the forefront. It's something that you always think about a certain hunt.
Well, for me, I'd almost have to go to 2, and that would be my first one with me and my grandpa together, and then it'd have to be this one, which was the last one with me and him together. And I'm on this one, I was wanting him to kill so bad. We were here in Louisiana, right here, probably 15, 20 minutes from our house on our hunting leash,
Mm-hmm.
And we go driving in there that morning and get in there, and there was a tree across the road. And turkeys normally are on up the road a ways, and we got out. Papa said, I can't climb over that log, son. So he said, you go ahead. And I said, okay. I said, well, don't leave the truck. So I went on down the road, and I come back and he wasn't there. I said, uh-oh. I got to looking for him and look for him and whistling. I didn't want to. So I go walking back down the road the way we come in. I was about to the point where I was going to call Daddy and tell him I'd lost Pawpaw. and I seen him sitting on the side of the road. And he's waving me up there, and I get up there and he said, son, I called him up here in 15 steps and I couldn't see him. He's 89 years old. And I said, you got to be kidding me. So we gave him a little while and eased on in there where he was at. And long story short, called him up within 10 steps of us again, and he couldn't see him. So I was wanting him to kill it so bad. And it was funny because he was 89 years old. He couldn't see the turkey, but when he finally saw us and he putted, Papa knew what that meant. He said, kill him now.
That's awesome.
So I killed him, and he was just as proud, So.
Right.
He had macular degeneration, and he had vision problems, at 89. But when he heard that sound go off, he said, you better do it now.
Yeah. So, he's 10 steps in front of us in full strut, and he couldn't see. I said, we're in a bind now.
What about you? What about your favorite hunt?
I guess it would be my first one, and I was with Papa when I killed him, and I was probably 11. 1963 is when I killed my first one, but prior to that, he had called up I don't know how many for me, and I would scare them, or I would shoot them, or I'd knock a feather out of them, and it was always an episode. And finally, we were squirrel hunting one year, and he heard turkey, and he got me over there. And he said, "Look," he said, "we're gonna practice on this turkey." So we didn't have the wing bone. We were squirrel hunting season wasn't open, so he picked him up a bladed or with his mouth, and he called, and the turkey came up there and said, "We're gonna practice." So we hid, and he said, "Now this is what we're going to do." And the turkey comes in, and we didn't shoot it. We looked at it, and I said, "Okay, I think I understand." So the following spring, we go, and he calls one up, and I killed him, and that was my first one. And it was a 2-year-old, nice eastern turkey, beautiful, and it was with him. And those are the moments that I wish we could have gotten on film or whatever. But that had to be my first one.
That's awesome. Just the heritage of these stories is incredible. And I didn't ask it earlier, but that's a question I ask a lot of people when I have them on talking whitetails. The heritage of the state that they're hunting. How deep is turkey hunting heritage in Louisiana?
Well, it runs deep, and I was telling Stephen, I was trying to think. I remember growing up, my grandfather, and I guess I call them the old timers. And but when I was growing up, it was they had turkeys here, but man, it was very, very, very secretive. I'm talking, brothers wouldn't tell brothers if they heard a turkey somewhere, and I mean, and something they never did, they would never call in front of somebody. I mean, it was all taboo. It was,
and that would have been all back in the 50s.
In the 50s when I was growing up, and I remember the stories, I've never ate a domestic turkey probably until I was in my 30s, because it was always a wild turkey on the dinner table at Thanksgiving or something like that. But it was, I reflect on those stories a lot, and what they went through, because they killed not only for sport, but they did for the food back then. Way back there, it was tough going. And I was going to mention too, the Bass Pro Shop. The home office is in Springfield, there in Missouri. They opened a large Bass Pro shop here in Denver Springs, and they came around to the local community, and they got a bunch of old pictures because they wanted to use local people and all, and got some pictures of my grandfather and me when I was small, and Dad on some of the turkey pictures, and they digitized them and blew them all up, and they have them in the Bass Pro Shop, and that's fun to go and look at, and he's got several of them down there.
That's awesome. That's a pretty cool story. I never heard of Bass Pro coming to anybody like that. When they're building their
they did a
store.
Job, because it was black and white photos, and they blew them up very big, very huge, and they were selective, and we signed that they could use them and display them, and and Daddy got to see it before he passed away. They had it completed, and he and Stephen would go down and
I brought him there the first time when they first opened, and where's the pictures at? We went up there and we found them, and we look at them. They got some guy shopping right there, he's looking at stuff, and Papa couldn't stand it. He said, "That's me right there." And that guy looked up there and he said, "I don't look like you." He said, "Heck, that was said 60 years ago."
That's awesome, man. I mean, it's almost like with stories like that, it's like you guys are like turkey hunting royalty at this point. I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on and talking with me. I've had a lot of fun doing this episode with you guys. Can't wait to see more videos come out. Tell everybody where you can be found on social media.
Yeah, well, we talked about that earlier. You said we didn't have many people, followers, and we really don't. And I let my wife and my daughter, who's 21 now, she's fixing to graduate from college from LSU, so I'm proud. That's
Oh, absolutely.
a moment there, but I let them convince me that we needed social media. So now we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
That's awesome.
Team Wingbone.
I'll definitely on all of those platforms. I'll definitely tag you and get that name out there. If you're listening to this or watching it, these guys are the real deal when it comes to turkey hunting, and these videos and everything that they got going on, working with Louisiana DNR and everything. They got a lot going on, and I appreciate you guys coming on for sure.
Thank you for having me.
thank you very much.
Everybody, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or anything, give us a rate and a review. YouTube, hit that subscribe button for me, like, comment, anything. You can find us as well, Blue River Bow Hunting, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Go Wild, all those good places. But I appreciate you, everybody, and y'all have a good day.